Hello everyone. Here we have a slightly simple set, I would say. The set is a die with numbers 1 to 6 marked on its 6 faces was rolled 300 times and the number which turns up was noted down. Okay. So there were 300 numbers that were noted down on the 300 uh, rolls of dice. Die. The table below gives the number of times that each individual number on the faces of the die turned up in the first n rolls where n is 50, 100 and so on. Okay. So this table basically gives us that the data that it tells us is in the first 50 rolls of the die, number 1 turned up 12 times, number 2 turned up 2 times, number 3 turned up 8 times and so on till number 6 which turns up 10 times. If you add all of these, the sum should come out to be 50 because we are talking about the first 50 rolls. In the first 100 rolls, the first 100 rolls will include the first 50 rolls as well and the next 50 rolls. Okay, so the first 100 rolls, the number 1 turns up 18 times, number 2 turns up 13, number 3 turns up 17 and so on till number 6 turning up 16 times. And if you add all these numbers, the sum should come out to be 100 because we are talking about the first 100 rolls. Okay. Now, based on this data, we have to answer certain questions. Let's look at the questions here. First question is, if the number 6 turned up in the 150th roll, okay, we're talking about rolls till here. In the 150th roll, the number 6 turned up, okay, then which numbers could not have turned up in the 125th roll? Okay. So this is where 100 ends, this is where 150 ends. So we have to find out somewhere in the middle will be the 125th roll. And in the 125th roll, which number cannot turn up? Okay, the options are number 2, number 1, number 4 and number 3. Okay, let's look at number 2. Number 2 turns up 13 times in the first 100 rolls and 19 times in the first 150 rolls. That means it turns up 19 minus 13 6 times in the third 50 rolls from 101 to 150. Let's talk about only these 50 rows. In these 50 rows, basically the rows from 101 to 150. Somewhere here, number 2 turns up 6 times. Number 1 turns up 18 minus 18 0 times. So you see, if number 1 doesn't turn up in the third 50 rows, how can it turn up in the 125th roll? So answer is actually option B here. The answer is pretty simple. The answer is option B. 1 does not turn up at all, hence it cannot turn up in the 125th row. Now some of you might get a little confused here that the number 6 turns up 16 to 41 25 times, but you see it's not there in the options at all. So it makes our life a lot easier. But even if you want to understand how is this possible, number 6 turns up on the 150th roll, right? On the 150th roll, number 6 turns up, and out of 50 rolls, out of total 50 rolls here, number 6 turns up 25 times, that is half of the times. That means the number 6 should probably occur every alternate roll, because on no two consecutive rows did the same number turn up. This information is given to us. Okay, so how is it possible that number 6 turns up on what do you say, on alternate or pretty much alternate rows, such that it also turns up on the 150th row? So there are a couple of possibilities for that. One is the number 6 turns up on the 102nd row. It turns up on the 102nd row, and then it turns up on every even roll. So 104th roll, 106th roll and so on till 150th roll. So this way we will have 25 rows of the die which where 6 turns up. Next possibility is, what if the first 6 rows on the 101st roll, right? Then it will turn up on every odd roll, and there will be somewhere 125th roll where 6 turns up, and so on till 147th row where 6 turns up. So this way we have 101 to 147. This will give us 24 rows, and the 25th roll can be the 150th roll. So together we will have a total of 25 rolls for 6. So this way also 6 can turn up 25 times. This way also 6 can turn up 25 times. So 6 may or may not turn up on the 125th roll. Here 6 is not turning up on the 125th roll. Here 6 is turning up on the 125th roll. So we cannot be sure about 6. 6 may or may not turn up on the 125th roll. Similarly, 2 may or may not turn up on the 125th roll. 3 is going to turn up how many times? 4 times. It may or may not turn up on the 125th roll, and 4 turns up 8 times. It may or may not turn up on the 125th roll, and the same goes for number 5 also. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Now coming to this next question, we have, which of the following numbers must have turned up for the maximum number of times in the first 208 rows? So we are talking about the first 208 rows. So this is where the 200th roll ends. Okay, and we have to check for the next 8 rows. Next 8 rows. Fine. So far, number 6 has turned up the maximum number of times in the first 200 rows, which is 41. Okay. That means number 6 will turn up at least or minimum for 6. It will turn up for a minimum of 41 times till 208 rows. Right? 6 is going to turn up another 4 times in the next 50 rows, and those 4 times can be after 208th row. From 209, these 4 rows can be between 209 till 250th row. Even if that happens, number 6 is going to turn up a minimum of 41 times during the first 208 rows. Okay. Now let's look at the options, other options, 5, 4 and 1. Okay. Let's look at 5. 5 is going to turn up a maximum of how many times? Let's see. 34 times it has already turned up in the first 200 rows. And in the next 8 rows, any number can turn up a maximum of 4 times. Maximum of 4 times. Any number. Because the numbers have to be, they cannot occur consecutively. So they can occur at max alternately. And in the 8 rows, and number occurring alternately can occur a maximum of 4 times. So the maximum number of times 5 can turn up. Maximum 5 can turn up maximum number of times is 34 plus 4, 38. Let's check for 4. 4 can turn up a maximum of 36 plus 4. Another 40 times in the first 208 rows. And the next option is 1. 1 can turn up a maximum of 33 plus again 4, which is 37 times. This is the maximum for all these numbers. Now the maximum for all these numbers is still less than the minimum for 6. Hence the answer to this question is option A. 6 turns up the maximum number of times in the first 208 rolls of the diagram. Okay. Moving on to the last question. What is the least number of times number 3 could have turned up in the first 280 rows? Okay. Fairly easy question this after the previous one. Number 3 has already turned up 43 times till 250th roll. Now we have to figure out from 251st till 280 time 80th roll, 3 can turn up a maximum of how many times? Okay. To maximize or least, okay, we have to minimize this. 3 can turn up a minimum of how many times? To minimize 3 turning up in these 30 rows, what we can do is we can maximize the number of times 3 turns up from 281st roll till 300th roll. So let's maximize number 3 turning up during this period. Okay, so there are how many rows? There are 20 rows here. Since there are 20 rows, any number can occur a maximum of 10 times here. Okay, so 3 can occur a maximum of 10 times. But actually 3 is occurring only 7 times between 250 to 300. So this can be only 7. So that means if 3 is occurring 7 times from 281st to 300th roll, that means 3 will not turn up during the 251st to 280th row. So the minimum number of times 3 can turn up between 251 to 280 is 0. Hence, the minimum number of times 3 turns up during the first 280 rows will be 43 plus 0, which is 43. Hence, the answer to this question is 43. Okay, so that's it for this set. Thank you.